George and Joanne Nicholson have been happily married for over 30 years. Every night before bed, they tell each other how much they love one another. They embrace, they kiss, and they go to sleep. And they've done this over 10,000 times. Pretty incredible, right? The big question is, what is the secret sauce to having a long-lasting marriage like George and Joanne's? Hi again, YouTube. My name is Brad Browning, and I've been a marriage coach for the last 10 years. And I've helped thousands of ailing couples save their marriages from the brink of divorce. And in this YouTube video, I'm going to talk about the secret ingredient to a long-lasting and loving marriage. Every year in the US, around 2.3 million couples get married. That breaks down to about 6,200 marriages every single day. Unfortunately, however, over half of these unions end prematurely, and the percentage of marriages that end up in a divorce or separation is steadily increasing. Not to mention the recent Ashley Madison hack exposed millions of men and women around the world that were at least interested in having an affair behind their partners' backs. And this begs the question, is marriage really this difficult? How can two people go from wanting to spend the rest of their lives together to calling it quits in just a few short years? How do the remaining 40% of marriages, the ones like George and Joanne's, end up staying strong and resilient? Well, of course, you might guess that the secret to a loving marriage is trust, loyalty, and shared interests. And you'd be right to a certain extent. But a recent study has shown that the secret to a lasting and loving marriage comes down to just two simple traits: kindness and generosity. That sounds a little too easy, right? The Gottman Institute recently conducted a study involving hundreds of married couples. With the help of a team of researchers, they hooked up all their subjects to electrodes and began asking them a series of simple questions in front of their spouses. For example, they asked questions relating to how they met, what they did that week together, what their social lives were like, and they asked all these questions in a calm and controlled manner. As the subjects answered the questions, the researchers analyzed the subjects' heart rate, blood flow, and sweat production. After collecting the data, they sent all the couples home and followed up with them 6 years later to see which couples had stayed together and which couples had separated or divorced. And the results of this study were pretty clear. The researchers divided the group into what they called masters, that is, the couples that ended up staying together after 6 years, and disasters, or the couples that had broken up. The disasters, the couples that broke up after 6 years or less, showed many signs of physiological arousal during the Q&A session. Meaning when the disasters were asked questions about their marriage, their heart rates increased, they began to sweat more, and they were sent into fight or flight mode. In short, the disasters were fearful of their partner's reactions to their answers. Instead of expecting to receive kindness, each of the disasters expected their spouse to attack them or belittle them during the interview process. The masters, on the other hand, showed extremely low levels of physiological arousal during the interview period. And this calmer energy translated into more affectionate behavior even during times of argument. The masters were able to create a sense of comfort and ease that resulted in a more relaxed environment. Instead of expecting to be attacked during the interview period by their spouses, they expected kindness and respect. So how does this information help you? Will treating your spouse with kindness and respect help you fix your marriage overnight? Well, it's possible, but obviously it's quite unlikely. A marriage must be built from the ground up. I mean, think about the house you live in. It doesn't matter how well built the kitchen is. If the foundation of your house is built on quicksand, your house will collapse. So how do you rebuild the foundation of your marriage? That's a question obviously I don't have time to answer in this short video, but if you do want to learn more, simply head over to my website, marriageguy.com, and watch the free video presentation on there on my website. And in it, I'll tell you 3 things that you must do right now if you want to get your marriage back on track. Again, the URL to that free presentation is marriageguy.com. And if you have any quick questions you want to ask me about this topic, please don't hesitate to ask me in the comments section below. I do my very best to get back to everyone who leaves a comment. Okay, but back to the topic at hand. There are a few small changes in behavior that you can make right now to start improving your marriage. And for this, let's shift our focus back to the Gottman Institute study. After the first test, they decided to run another experiment. They invited over 100 married couples to a gorgeous bed and breakfast retreat and studied their behaviors over the course of a few weeks. They analyzed specifically how each partner reacted to their spouse's attempt to connect with them. So for example, say a husband was trying to connect with his wife during a breakfast. He might say something like, "Aren't these pancakes bloody fantastic?" And at this point, his wife has one of 2 choices to make. She can acknowledge and engage with her husband in a positive manner, what the study called turning towards her spouse, or she can choose to either ignore or belittle him, what the study called turning away from her spouse. So for example, to turn towards her husband, she could say something like, "Yes, love, these pancakes are just delicious." Or in contrast, she could also say something like, "Don't you have anything better to say?" or outright ignore her husband to turn away from him. And like the first experiment, the researchers followed up with every couple 6 years later to see which couples had stayed together and which couples had separated or divorced. And the findings in this study told a similar story to the first study I talked about. The couples that ended up getting divorced or separated responded negatively to their spouses more than 70% of the time. The ones that remained happily married responded positively or turned towards their spouse almost 9 times out of 10. Of course, like I said, changing your behavior overnight would probably not solve all your marital problems. Kindness and generosity are some of the most important traits to have in a marriage, and it's important to keep that in mind moving forward. But if you are in a rocky marriage and you're worried that you and your spouse might be calling it quits soon, then I highly recommend that you head over to my website, marriageguy.com, and watch the free presentation there. Again, the URL is marriageguy.com. Alternatively, you can also receive personal email coaching from me directly. And for more details on my personal coaching program, just head over to marriageguy.com/coaching. And that's pretty much it for this video. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to leave a comment right below this video. I always do my absolute best to reach out to every single one of you. And please remember to like this video if you found it helpful as well. Thanks a lot for watching. We'll see you next time.